Hi there, I'm the 996, and I want to welcome you back for my second part of the interview with Blair Cousins, talking about her story, The Distance Between, featuring Esther, a girl who really wants to save the world, who lives on another planet called Rain. All right, so my next question, if I say next, because if you see the previous video, you will see what questions I was asking previously, is your book is self-published. What made you decide to take this route instead of the traditional publishing route?
Um, so what I maybe choose to do self-publishing, and I want to just put this out there, whatever you choose will be a lot of work. There is no easy way, so don't listen to someone when they say, "Oh, you can only find success through this route, or it'll be easier this route." Every route is going to come with its obstacles, but at the time of me trying to publish Luigi the Curious Cat, I had aspirations to go to college and get my master's degree, which did not happen. But I'm always hopeful, and I thought to myself, as extraordinary as it would be for an agent to pick up my work and sell that work to a publisher. It would be horrible if I was in the middle of a master's degree, and I would if I had gone to get a master's degree, it would have been for a heavy science degree, so like wildlife conservation or something in the science, something really tough, dense, something I definitely need to focus my attention on. So it'd be really tough if, by some grace of God, I was offered that contract while I was in grad school. Because it's tough for me because I love learning. So I prioritize my education and my writing on the same. So I thought to myself, well, what if I get offered this and then I have to drop everything to edit a book because I'm now being employed by a publisher. And I thought to myself, wow, I can't, like I said, this is also, I didn't know that much about the traditional publishing route at the time, but I knew enough to know that, once things take off, it takes off. Like a lot of people think, oh, it's a slow process. It's only slow when it's not. And when it's not slow, you're expected to do the work. Like if you get picked up, or even if you get an agent, your agent's like, hey, I need you to revise this, this, and this. They expect you to have it done because that is your relationship. So you just can't be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll do it in a couple of more months. No, they expect you to do it. So I was like, oh, I don't know if I'll be in a place where I can do all of that stuff. And what if I wound up in school? Because in the past, I would write on breaks. So self-publishing looked really appealing because you can literally stop self-publishing and do whatever you want and pick it back up because you are the boss. As long as you take care of the business end, pay your taxes, file your right paperwork, you can do whatever you want. You can go on a hiatus for 5 years and it doesn't matter. You can stop everything. You don't have a boss to answer to. You answer to yourself. So I thought like, oh, this would be a great route to go because I can do everything, but most importantly, I can stop if something were to happen.
That makes a lot of sense. I think sometimes people think of self-publishing as something that is just this lesser than publishing route. And honestly, it takes so much work. Like I remember you telling me like all the different things that you have to do in self-publishing, and also what I've read about other authors who self-publish. And like you're right, any route is difficult, but self-publishing, you really having to wear so many hats that
Yep, all of the hats
wow.
and the taxes. They don't. Everyone talks about the fluff. They don't talk about the taxes. So just go self-publish, read about the taxes. They'll help you out. It's a lot, but you'll get it. But it's a lot.
Okay. So the cover for your book is really wonderful. How did you get it designed?
Um, yeah, so the cover, I was actually really shocked that I was even able to work with the cover artist. I can't remember her last name, but her first name is Rebecca. She is the main illustrator at, I believe, her company called Vivid Covers. And I actually found her through a Facebook group for, I think it was either the Facebook group for cover design critiques or the Facebook group for self-publishing marketing. I belong to both of those. I can't remember them off the top of my head. But well, actually, yeah. But I belong to those groups, and she had posted something about her website, and I checked it out, and her prices were pretty reasonable for what she was offering. And she has a lot of variety of covers, but what the package I went for was a completely original design, so not a Photoshop design, which is nothing wrong with that because there's some awesome Photoshop designs, but this is like a hand illustrated design. And when I booked with her, we actually went through so many drafts of the cover. And I will say, if you are someone out there commissioning a cover, even if you are doing a Photoshop cover of just some pictures from like the stock photo place, have an idea of what your cover should be before you go in, because I think I had a vague idea. Normally I draw like terrible sketches of what the covers will be, and I had a picture of the original cover was going to be very similar to what it wound up being, but the original cover idea had a picture of like Esther standing somewhere, but her back was facing you, and she was looking back at you, and I like that. And her, like, the wind was blowing through her outfit, and it's supposed to be representing that she's moved, that movement, that she's going somewhere, and she's looking back at her old life, and but her body's facing forward, so she's heading somewhere, but she's reflecting back. But that picture got faded in the sun. So, because I hung it up on my wall, so I hang up a lot of my little really crappy covers on my wall in front of my computer so that every day I can look at it and be like, this is what you're going to have. This is, just keep your eye on that. But if you have a room with the sun and you draw, it fades. Like, the sun will fade your hand-drawn picture. So I don't know if I should tell you to draw it in pencil or a marker, but it will fade. So I forgot about that image that I drew of her. So I went through a lot of drafts with the cover artist. But she came up with these like awesome ideas, and she was so kind to work with me. I knew she was probably tired of all these drafts, but I loved her art style. I wanted that like a very mature looking style. So I didn't want it to be like super realistic because another drawback of with the stock images, there aren't a lot of stock images with black people in it. So if you are writing with like dark skin, not dark skin, but black characters or other characters of color, the stock photos aren't as diverse, so you might not get the pose you want. And also, it's in space, so it's just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find a picture of her standing, and behind her is a giant green planet. I was like, I don't think that's in the stock, so that's why I kind of chose. And my genre leans toward that, right? Science fiction. So people in the sci-fi, when people who read that, they like that kind of stuff because some of the old schools like stuff was all hand drawn too. So I was really lucky to get an opportunity to work with her, and all of the talent shout outs go to her. She's not standing here, but I'm just saying, like, it goes to her. Her brilliance really brought that cover to life. I'm hoping to work with her for the next 2 books.
Well, also you mentioned about Esther being, basically a female of color. Was she always a female of color when you envisioned Esther, or was that something that just decided to make a part of her characteristics later on?
Yeah, from day one, from her original conception, like I said in the previous video, she was a character pulled from older characters. She was always black because actually, it's kind of weird to admit this because everyone just assumes because I'm black, I make a lot of black characters. But my background is in anime, so I didn't read a lot of novels. I read a lot of manga, lots of manga and anime. And of course, when you are a child, you pick up and you associate what you think you like in your fiction. So a lot of my characters wind up being white. People are very surprised. They're like, why are a lot of your characters white? I don't care about race that much unless it has something to do with the character's background. So my default was white characters because that's what I grew up with when reading the manga, because there aren't a lot of dark-skinned characters in the manga, understandably, because it's Japanese. Duh, I'm not gonna tell a minority, be like, hey, Japanese, you can't make Japanese people. So I understand, like, I'm not as upset. I mean, every country has their, like, racism, but I'm not upset at Japan because all the characters look like Japanese people. I'm not mad at them, but that's just kind of how my characters defaulted. So Esther was always a darker character, and I like that diversity. Now that I'm a little bit older, and since, like I said, race in this story, I mean, skin color in this story has nothing to do with her character. This is not a story that her skin color will be a part of her to the point where it is purposely picked. So since it wasn't purposely picked because of her background, I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity to put more diversity forward because I know that people need to see it to internalize it so they'll know that they're welcome, because I had a lot of trouble like with that as a child because there weren't a lot of characters out there. Not that I really paid attention. I never really cared about details like that. I only cared about like hot guys and good storylines. It wasn't until I got older I was like, oh man, all of my characters are white hot guys. I need some hot Indian guys and some hot Chinese guys and girls too. Everybody. But yeah, it's just important to see. So I was like, okay, Esther, she's a dark-skinned girl. She's kicking butt. I hope people will see that, yes, dark-skinned people, we do all of that. So any story, we're in it, we can do all of that. So that's what I kind of thought.
That's a really great point to make. I remember when I was a teenager, my parents got me this book called Voices by Ursula Le Guin, and one of the things I was very excited about was on the cover was an African American female, and it was a sci-fi fantasy book. So, and this was something I had never seen before, and it was just like, oh my goodness, wow! It was such a surprise. So I know what that feeling is like because it is more so for rarity, especially I feel like within the fantasy and the sci-fi realm. Like we see so many urban stories about people talking about what is their Black experience in the modern world. But when it comes to a story where that is not a main part of the storyline, it's just so rare to have a main character that is just African American.
Yeah, that is ultra rare. Because, like, I mean, I like the Black experience kind of background because it really can show what a person can do. But like I said, Black people and other people of color, they do all of that. We can do any storyline, pirate story, space story, high fantasy. We can be in all of that. We do all of that. So that's why I thought it was really important that, you know what? Yeah, this is Esther. It's going to be on the cover. Hopefully that will resonate with them so they can see, like, yeah, I can be a ranger. Well, I guess we can join the military. I think nothing wrong with that, I guess. But, you know, in your imagination, you can go with Esther on these trips and stuff.
Okay, so what advice would you give to people who want to write or are writing sci-fi fantasy?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say, because I'm still trying to grapple with some of the nuances and tropes of the genre. My background is very anime and very manga, and that's what I mean. Just because of my background, I know for a fact that anything is possible. Any story can exist. I mean, there are some really diverse animes and things out there. But with that being said, it's not exactly your traditional fantasy and science fiction background. Like, I'm not a big Star Wars fan, so yeah, not sorry. But I do like Star Trek. But I didn't read any of the Lord of the Rings, but I read The Hobbit. I've seen all the Lord of the Rings movies. Haven't read Dune. I'm trying to, but it's like a sausage book. It's like huge. Okay, it's really big. But I didn't really grow up on the traditional genre favorites. It doesn't mean I don't like them. I just, I didn't get to them when I was a kid or a teenager. So I would say just go out and consume as much of what you want to write as possible, be it fan fiction, comics, television, novels. Just go out and consume because, like, I mean, obviously, TV writing is different practice than novel writing, but character development and seeing how people work on the page and just seeing how the stories are formulated and start and ending, you can pick up on that. You can take those ideas because obviously people adapt books into television shows, into movies all the time. It's not impossible to learn from either of those. So just go out and consume whatever genre you write, just go and consume in that. Read some books, take some recommendations. Like a coworker of mine told me I had to read Dune, and people still to this day, some of my favorite YouTubers, like I'm into D&D right now, and I'm following a guy named Matt Colville. He's a game designer, and he runs D&D, and he like loves Dune. He's just like,
I loved the TV show, so I had to interrupt you for a moment. I remember the Sci-Fi Channel back. Everybody remembers the Sci-Fi Channel before it became what it is now. We know sometimes I remember in the Sci-Fi Channel they have wrestling on. Before they ever did that, they had Dune. And I loved Dune. It was, I loved the stand. I loved the weird worm things. I loved how he was like, I will let the fear pass through me, and then I will remain.
See, this is why I need to read this stuff. But I'm just saying, like, take the recommendations of the people that you follow or something that you see online and just go out and consume it. If it's not for you, put it down, move on. But then you'll pick up things and you'll learn things along the way.
Okay. Well, also, so I know that you classify Esther's story, The Distance Between, as a new adult novel. At what point did you realize this was going to be a new adult novel compared to maybe a young adult or just an adult novel?
I think there is a huge gap right now in publishing for much the same as that weird space between middle grade and high school where like I think 13 and 14 is like a dead zone because children read up. So middle school kids want to read up into high school and elementary school kids want to read up into middle school. So it's the same thing with YA. Now YA is vastly diverse. I mean, there are some incredible YA stories out there that anyone can really enjoy and read. But at the same time, there is a gap. So the world likes to focus on youth. They want to put the emphasis on the people who changed the world as the very young youth. I'm talking like, at 15 to 18. That is, even though Esther is 18, but she'll grow as the series progresses. That's the magic zone for change. So the world puts a lot of emphasis on youth, meaning that the only people who can change the world are this gap of people right here, people in high school, you know what I mean? And if you're not in that age range, I may look a little young, but I'm definitely not in my early 20s. I'm not in high school, obviously. So when you are my age, late 20s, you kind of feel like, well, dang, what are we doing? Are we changing the world? Is there a space where we can have these incredible stories that happen after high school, before marriage and career begins? Because like I consider adult novels to be characters that are, established, married with children. That's perfectly fine. But like I don't, but I don't want to read a story about like a husband and his wife and his kids per se saving the world, which is great. That's fine. I want to read a story, even though I'm not in that age range that I write for, oddly enough. But some of my stories might be. But I want to read stories about people who are 21 or 22 or 19, even though sometimes they might pitch that as an upper middle grade. I mean, upper YA. I want to read stories about that group in the new adult range, which I will consider college age, or even as far to say new adult can be people who they don't feel established. So your main characters should feel like they haven't established it. They haven't gotten that full-time job. They're not, maybe they might be in a relationship, but they don't feel like they're on this established path. And I think there's not a lot of stories out there for, like, publishers just don't have a lot of new adult stories. And I think there is a need for people to see themselves like, hey, okay, I'm 26 years old and I haven't gotten it all figured out. Can I still save the world? Can I go on a pirate ship? Yeah. yes, you can.
It's a very interesting way I think about it, and I think you're right. Like personally, I love young adult, but I do think like maybe I might write new adult as well. So, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to write a new adult novel?
A new adult? Yeah, so like I said, I'm no expert on all the tropes, and I think when New Adult came out, people just assumed it was like just sex, like YA with lots of sex, which is nothing wrong with that. But I think some of the themes would be, as I mentioned before, that feeling of not being established. So it's like the same thing with YA, except for now you don't have to worry about school or, your first love or, things like that. Now you're moving into, college life, or maybe you didn't go to college, going into the workforce, trying to find your way. But this time, instead of like in YA, this time you can find your way. You have the tools to do so. You can pick up and leave. Like, say, for instance, you have a terrible family life and you want to run and leave and, like, bye at 18. You can. Yeah, now you legally can. Like, the cops cannot be like, hey, I know you don't like your mom, but you're 16 and you have to go back to your mom's house. But you're 18 now, you can do whatever you want. Like, and not just like partying, but you can take that job or go to school, or, you have a lot more freedom to find yourself and come into yourself, and a lot more options. So my advice is just, like, you can tap into that. You don't have to, obviously, if you're writing a historical piece, depending on what time. If you're like prehistoric times, like Flintstones, I don't know if they're going to college per se. Maybe you're going to learn about taking down mammoths. I don't know if that's correct time period, but I would say kind of you can tap into the same themes that you use if you were a big fan of YA and move that into the new adult realm.
Okay. So I see that this is the first book of the series. Do you plan this to be a duology, a trilogy, or
It'll be a trilogy.
A trilogy? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to thank you so much for this interview. But before we go, I just wanted to read one part from your book that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say what this is about because I don't have spoilers.
Okay.
But I'm just going to read this part.
Okay.
The planet is always going to be in peril, no matter how many times you save it. This master plan, this life's purpose is all a load of crap. You can't stop the world from being destroyed. All you can do is hold on to the things you love and fight like hell until you breathe your last breath. Whatever happens tomorrow, don't forget what you're fighting to protect. Now, if anyone wants to know where this comes from or wants to find out more about this, you can get your book from where can you get your book?
Oh yeah, so it's available on Amazon right now. So it's Amazon for the paperback. It's in Kindle Unlimited. So if you're a subscriber to Kindle Unlimited, you can read the book along with your cost of your monthly subscription, and it also is available on Kindle.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for this interview. Okay. And everybody, if you like this, give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, just post below.
Sweet. Have a good one.